Up to this point, as we've been working with lights, we've seen that objects that have lights shining on them throw shadows on things behind them. That's not the default behavior. I switched that on to help you see how lights work. In fact, shadows don't show up when you throw lights on things. You need to switch that on. So I'm going to show you how to work with shadows and other so-called material options in this lesson. Go to Working Files, go to After Effects Projects, and open up 1903 Material Options. We have two comps here. We've got this comp where we're going to do some work, and this comp which is an example of things that have lights on them with all kinds of material options going on that I've got there just for your edification if you care to go in there and kind of take a look at how those things were done. I've got three different lights there, and I've got things shining through that show the color of the objects, and lights from behind and lights from in front. So I think it's kind of a fun comp to look at, and I leave it for you to check it out. Let's go back to comp 1 though. The first order of business when you're working with shadows is to look at your light. So I'm going to go over here to light here and double click on it and look at its properties. And we're working with a point light here. See the color and the intensity. But down here, there's a little checkbox, casts shadows. But if I uncheck that and click OK, next time I make a light, I'll go right click, new light, like that. That'll be off because it'll show whatever you did last time. So it could be off for you or on for you. In any event, I'll go back here and double click on it. You want it on, otherwise this exercise will be a complete waste of time. So shadow darkness indicates how black the shadow will be or how much light will pass through an object if you switch over to that feature, that material option. And shadow diffusion means how spread out is the shadow. 11 pixels is not much diffusion, it's pretty sharp. If you increase this to around 100 or something like that, then it gets a little bit softer around the edges. But we're going to leave it like this because it's easy to see these shadows when the shadow darkness is that high. You can bring it above 100, by the way. You don't have to stick down there with 100% or 80 or whatever. You can always go above. You can make it really dark that way. And we're going to leave fall off to none in this case because I want to make sure the shadows are pretty distinct. So I'll click OK here. There you go. So now we've set up our light to throw shadows in a particular way, which is what you have to do first. And now we need to look at material options to see how things are going to work. So the things that are going to throw shadows is this text here and this stained glass window. And the shadows are going to fall on this backdrop, on this texture back there. So first, let's look at the texture. So I'm going to open up its material options by pressing AA. A would bring up the anchor point, but AA shows things that relate to 3D that are not transform property related. Let's just scroll down here a little ways and see what it's got. It says casts shadows off. Well, casting shadows is off by default for anything in 3D space. You switch on 3D for a layer, you get material options showing up inside that layer, and the cast shadows is off by default. I think there's a practical reason for this because shadows use a lot of processor power, so it's probably good to have them off by default and really have them come on when you need them to come on. You can even switch them off after you've set them up just to kind of speed things up, and then when you're ready to render your project, switch them back on again. Light transmission is something that lets light go through an object, and that's down to 0%. Again, that's 0% by default right now. If you shine something on something and the shadow is being thrown by that thing, there won't be any light going through. It'll just be a shadow. Accepts shadows is on by default. So this layer back there will show you shadows if you allow shadows to fall in it. Right now, none are. And accepts lights is on by default too. Obviously, we can see the light there. If I turn the light off, you'll see that it obviously is taking light when you shine a light on it. And that's on by default. All right, down here we've got a few other items here, ambient, diffuse, specular, and those kind of things. We're going to talk about them a little bit later. But at any rate, the background is set up to receive shadows, and that's on by default. So we're not going to deal with the background like that anymore. Let's take a look at these two guys here that will throw shadows. Start off with lights and text. Open that one up, pressing AA again to look at its material options. Cast shadows is off by default, so let's just click it on. And there you go. There's the shadow. And it's pretty distinct because diffusion is set to just 11 or 10 or so. So it's a pretty sharp edge shadow. And it's falling there on that texture in the background, which is just fine. Let's just leave it at that for now. Let's go over to the stained glass window here. Click AA for it. And turn on cast shadows for it. And let's see. Notice how it's throwing a shadow on the edge of the text because the text or any other layer accepts shadows by default. And so now this stained glass is throwing its shadow not only on the wall, but on the text that's behind it. You might be able to see it better over here on the left. I get the camera tool and kind of move us around a little bit like that. Here we go. There's the light up there, the stained glass, and the text behind the stained glass and then the wall. Let's just move the light a little bit. I'll click on the selection tool and click on light here so you can see it. Click on the X there and move the light to the right here. We'll see what happens to the shadows there. So I move the light to the right. then more of the shadow from the stained glass will fall on that text behind there, just because we moved the light. So I think you can see how that works. The next thing down below cast shadows is something called light transmission, and this is such a cool feature. I just got to tell you, this is so great. This allows light to pass through something, taking on the color of the object. It can be really great when you're trying to, let's say, have a stained glass window throw light on the floor someplace and have that light be realistic, not just a shadow like this, but actually have light pass through the stained glass window. So I'm going to ratchet this guy up a bit here. Go up to 15, 20, keep on ratcheting it up, and watch what happens to this background here in a second. There it is there, and there it is there. Casts the light right through it. Notice it also casts it on the text there too. Take it up right to 100%. And what's really cool about this feature is that you can turn off the layer that's throwing the light. Right now it says cast shadows on. There's actually 3 different possibilities with cast shadows: off, on, and only, which makes the top layer disappear and just have the light transmission go there behind there. You can project video clips on walls like this, make it look like they're projectors, and it just looks so cool to be able to do this. So I want to make sure you know that cast shadows is not just on or off. You can have it be only the shadow, and if you have light going through it, it looks even better like this. It looks so cool. All right, I'm going to go back and switch that on to off for the time being, because I want to show you something else down here. Down below, we got something called ambient, diffuse, specular, and you can see the rest of those guys there. Ambient refers to how much light is coming back at you, and it just doesn't really have much of an effect, generally speaking. But diffuse is interesting. Diffuse can take the brightness coming back at you and kind of make it duller, which can be helpful sometimes, because sometimes you don't want to have to change the intensity of the light for an object in the scene, but you do want one object to be a little less reflective. So I'm going to go down to the background here, to the plaster texture, and go AA on it, and look at its material options and change that diffusion. I'm going to drop it down a bit here. You see we can kind of make the background a little less bright without having to change the intensity of the light. I think it's a very helpful feature sometimes. But now I'm going to go back up to stained glass and work on it. Specular intensity, specular shininess, and metal. These are a little confusing in terms of how these things work. When you shine light on something, the light reflects back with the color of the object. But the light also reflects back with the color of the light. When you're talking about specular intensity, you're talking about that individual color of that light coming back at you in some way. So you can create these little specular highlights on an object like this, which can be really cool because you can animate the object with the specular highlight going across it. So specular intensity talks about how much is coming back at you. But to see this, you need to change the metal first. Metal means how much of the original color of the object is coming back at you versus how much of the light is coming back at you. When it's 100%, it means 100% of this object is reflecting back at you, and none of the light color is coming back at you. So if you want to see a specular highlight in there, you need to be able to knock this down a bit. Then you start seeing the light itself coming back at you. The specular shininess means how much of this area will reflect that light back at you. Right now, a low number means a lot reflects back at you. It seems kind of backwards, but anyway, the low number means a lot comes back. But if you want just a little highlight to show up that you can then animate, take this guy up to a much larger number. You'll see that the area gets small there. See how it's getting smaller and smaller? Get a little highlight there in the center like that. Then the intensity is how bright is that specular highlight. Well, there's that specular highlight right in the middle. Well, we can make it move. So I'm going to go up here to that layer. I'm going to click on this and go R for rotation. Now we're going to take the Y rotation, which is the vertical rotation. And you can move that specular highlight around. See how it goes across the scene like that? Which can make it very realistic if you animate something with light shining on it. It really looks like the light is reflecting back at you as you move the object through space like that, or rotate it like that, to see that specular highlight go across there. And you can change the size of the specular highlight and how intense it is as you make this rotation to make it look even more realistic. So that's a rundown on material options. They do give you a lot of control over how your objects respond to light being thrown on them.